The desperate call. 770 words. The galaxy was dying, and the Council of United Worlds knew it. Commander Vex of the Altarian Empire stood before the massive holographic display in the council chambers, watching red dots spread across star systems like a plague. The Devourers, ancient machines that consumed entire planets, had awakened from their million-year slumber. In just 6 months they had destroyed 47 worlds. "We have exhausted all options," announced Elder Krim, his blue skin pale with worry. "Our finest warriors cannot stop them. Our most advanced weapons barely scratch their hulls." The assembled delegates from dozens of species murmured in fear. The Zephyrians with their crystal bodies chimed anxiously. The molten folk from the volcanic worlds hissed steam. Even the proud winged hunters hung their heads in defeat. "There is one option we have not tried," spoke a small voice from the corner. All eyes turned to Dr. Nala, a young researcher from the Outer Rim territories. She had been studying primitive civilizations for years, cataloging species that had not yet achieved faster-than-light travel. "The humans," she continued, her voice growing stronger. "They are from a world called Earth, in the Sol system. They have not contacted us, but our scouts have observed them for decades." Commander Vex scoffed. "A primitive species? What could they possibly offer that our combined fleets cannot?" Dr. Nala activated her datapad, and images filled the chamber. Humans in metal suits walking through fire. Humans diving into frozen oceans to save strangers. Humans fighting impossible battles against overwhelming odds. "They call it stubbornness," she explained. "When faced with extinction, they do not surrender. When logic says to retreat, they advance. When their weapons fail, they use their hands. When their bodies break, they use their minds." The chamber fell silent as they watched footage of human soldiers charging enemy positions, human doctors working for days without sleep, human engineers building in conditions that would kill most species. "Look at their wars," Dr. Nala continued. "They fight each other constantly, yet when a greater threat appears, they unite instantly. They have survived ice ages, plagues, asteroid impacts, and countless disasters. They adapt to any environment, from desert wastelands to frozen tundra." Elder Krim studied the data carefully. "Their technology is primitive. They still use chemical rockets and metal projectiles. But observe their innovation rate," Dr. Nala pressed. "In just 100 of their years, they went from horse-drawn carts to landing on their moon. They solve problems by thinking differently, not by using better tools." Commander Vex remained skeptical. "Even if they could help, how would we contact them? They do not have faster-than-light communication." "We send a ship," Dr. Nala replied, simply. "We go to them directly." The debate raged for hours. Some called it madness to seek help from primitives. Others argued that desperate times required desperate measures. Finally, Elder Krim called for a vote. "All in favor of contacting the humans?" The vote was close, but it passed. 3 days later, the diplomatic vessel Harmony departed for the Sol system. Captain Rex, a veteran of countless first contact missions, commanded the ship. With him went Dr. Nala and a small team of translators and cultural experts. The journey took 2 weeks. As they approached Earth, they marveled at the blue-green world orbiting a yellow star. Space around the planet buzzed with primitive satellites and space stations. "They have orbital infrastructure," noted Dr. Nala with excitement. "More advanced than we thought." Captain Rex opened communication channels and broadcast on all frequencies. The message was simple, translated into every human language they had studied. "People of Earth, we are peaceful visitors from the stars. Our galaxy faces extinction, and we seek your help. Please respond if you receive this message." The response came within minutes, not from one source but from dozens. Military bases, space agencies, radio telescopes, and amateur operators all tried to establish contact simultaneously. Within hours, representatives from every major human nation had gathered at a facility called the United Nations. The aliens watched in amazement as these fractious creatures who had been fighting wars just days before immediately set aside their differences to face this new situation. "Fascinating," murmured Dr. Nala. They unite against common challenges, just as predicted. The first human to speak to them was an elderly diplomat named Ambassador Gray. His first words would later be recorded in galactic history. Welcome to Earth. We don't know much about the galaxy, but if something is threatening all life, then it's threatening us too. Tell us what you need. And so began humanity's first contact with the galaxy, not as conquerors or supplicants, but as allies ready to fight an impossible war. Humanity answers, 7 on 70 words. The first human to set foot aboard an alien starship was Colonel Jack Stone, a grizzled military veteran chosen for his calm demeanor and tactical expertise. As he floated through the Harmony's corridors in zero gravity, adapting to the alien environment within minutes, the Galactic delegation began to understand what they had invited aboard. Your artificial gravity generators are damaged, Colonel, Stone asked, noting their struggle with the weightless conditions. Captain Rex looked embarrassed. The Devourer's energy weapons disrupted many of our systems. We have been unable to repair them. Stone pulled out a small device, a simple multi-tool from Earth. Within an hour, he had the gravity systems functioning again. The aliens stared in amazement. How did you know how to fix our technology? Dr. Nala asked. Stone shrugged. Figured it worked like our pumps back home. Just needed to reroute the power flow. This was humanity's first gift to the galaxy, the ability to see simple solutions to complex problems. When the Harmony returned to Council space, it carried 12 human representatives from different nations and specialties. General Lisa Park, a strategic planner. Dr. Ahmed Hassan, a physicist. Engineer Maria Santos, a problem solver. Commander Yuki Tanaka, a naval officer. Each brought their unique perspective. The council chamber had never seen anything like the human delegation. While other species stood formally at attention, the humans moved freely, examining everything with curious eyes. They asked questions constantly, taking notes and sketching diagrams. Show us these devourers, General Park requested bluntly. The holographic display activated, showing the massive machine entities. Each devourer was the size of a small moon, covered in weapons and protected by energy shields that had proven impenetrable to galactic technology. The humans studied the images silently. Then Dr. Hassan spoke. They are machines, not living beings. Correct, confirmed Elder Krim. Ancient artificial intelligences that consume matter to replicate themselves. Then they have weaknesses, stated Commander Tanaka firmly. All machines have weaknesses. The galactic representatives exchanged glances. They had spent months trying to find weaknesses and had failed. Engineer Santos stepped forward. May we see the battle recordings? For the next 6 hours, the humans analyzed every engagement between galactic forces and the Devourers. They asked for technical specifications, energy readings, and tactical reports. The aliens provided everything, though they doubted primitive minds could comprehend their advanced data. Finally, General Park stood up. We need to see one of these things ourselves. The request shocked the council. That is impossible, Commander Vex protested. No ship has survived close contact with a Devourer. Then we will be the first, Park replied simply. Dr. Nala volunteered to escort the humans to the nearest Devourer location, a mining system where 3 of the entities were consuming an asteroid belt. The journey took 5 days aboard the fastest galactic vessel. As they approached the system, the human delegation watched the Devourers work. The massive machines moved systematically, breaking apart asteroids and feeding the matter into processing units on their hulls. They are efficient, observed Dr. Hassan, but efficiency creates predictability. Look at their formation, noted Commander Tanaka. They maintain precise distances from each other. That suggests coordination protocols. Engineer Santos studied the energy readings. Their shields pulse in regular cycles. There, every 47.3 seconds, there is a 0.2-second fluctuation. General Park smiled grimly. Gentlemen, ladies, we have our weaknesses. The humans spent 3 days observing the Devourers, taking notes and measurements the galactic scientists had never thought to record. They watched the machine's behavior patterns, analyzed their coordination methods, and identified subtle inefficiencies in their operations. When they returned to council space, the humans presented their findings to a packed chamber. Species from across the galaxy had come to hear what the primitives had discovered. "The Devourers are not invincible," General Park announced. "They are predictable. They follow programming, which means they can be outmaneuvered." She activated the display, showing the battle plans humanity had developed. "First, we need to change our tactics, stop fighting them directly. That plays to their strengths. Instead, we use their predictability against them." Dr. Hassan stepped forward. "Their shields operate on quantum frequencies we can disrupt. We do not need to overpower them. We need to confuse them." Engineer Santos added, "Their coordination relies on subspace communication. If we can jam those signals, they will revert to individual behaviors, making them vulnerable." The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Instead of massive fleets trying to overpower the Devourers, small human-led strike teams would use guerrilla tactics, hit-and-run strategies, and technological disruption. Commander Vex stood slowly. "You would have us abandon centuries of military doctrine for the theories of a species that has never fought in space?" General Park met his gaze steadily. "Commander, your centuries of doctrine are not working. Our theories are untested, but they are based on fresh thinking and careful observation." The chamber fell silent. Then Elder Krim spoke. "How soon can you begin?" And with those words, humanity took its first step toward leading the galaxy. The Turning Tide, 770 words. The first human-led operation against the Devourers was a disaster, by Galactic standards. Strike Team Alpha, led by Commander Sarah Kim, approached the Devourer-designated Target 1 with a mixed crew of humans and aliens. Following human tactical doctrine, they avoided direct confrontation and attempted to jam the entity's communication systems. The mission failed. The jamming equipment was destroyed. 2 alien crew members were injured, and the team barely escaped. The Galactic military commanders smugly declared the human strategies worthless. But Commander Kim returned with something more valuable than victory: data. The jamming worked for exactly 4 minutes and 17 seconds, she reported to the assembled War Council. During that time, the Devourer's behavior patterns changed completely. It stopped coordinating with the others and began making inefficient choices. General Park studied the data intently. 4 minutes is not enough, but it proves the concept. We just need better equipment and different timing. Dr. Hassan had been working with Galactic scientists to understand Devourer technology. "The problem is power supply," he explained. "Our jamming devices cannot maintain output long enough to significantly disrupt their systems." Engineer Santos smiled. "Then we do not maintain the output. We pulse it." The next attempt involved 3 human teams working in coordination. Instead of continuous jamming, they used short, powerful bursts timed to coincide with the Devourer's shield fluctuations. The results exceeded all expectations. When Target 2's communication systems were disrupted in precise intervals, the massive machine began exhibiting erratic behavior. It stopped its systematic consumption pattern and started moving randomly. More importantly, it became separated from its companion Devourers. "It is working," breathed Dr. Nala as she watched the tactical display. The Devourer is isolated. Captain Rex, now working closely with the human teams, coordinated the final phase. While the confused Devourer wandered aimlessly, Galactic heavy weapons finally found their mark. Concentrated fire pierced the entity's weakened shields and destroyed its central processing core. The first Devourer in Galactic history had been defeated. News spread across council space within hours. Species that had been preparing for extinction suddenly found new hope. But the humans were already planning the next phase. "One victory does not win a war," General Park reminded the celebrating council. "We need to scale up these tactics and train Galactic forces in human methods." What followed was the most intensive military training program in Galactic history. Human instructors worked around the clock to teach alien forces unconventional warfare. The proud Altarian commanders learned stealth and misdirection. The logical crystalline strategists studied chaos theory and unpredictable tactics. The cultural clash was enormous. Galactic military doctrine emphasized honor, direct confrontation, and technological superiority. Human warfare was built on deception, adaptation, and using the enemy's strengths against them. Commander Vex, initially the most resistant to human methods, became one of their strongest advocates after witnessing the second major victory, Strike. Team Delta, composed entirely of alien forces trained by humans, successfully destroyed 3 Devourers in a single engagement using coordinated jamming and flanking maneuvers. "I have fought for 40 years, Vex admitted to General Park. "I thought I understood warfare. You have shown me that I understood only one type of warfare." Within 6 months, human-trained forces had eliminated over 30 Devourers. The advance of the ancient machine slowed, then stopped, then reversed. For the first time in the crisis, the galaxy was winning. But success brought new challenges. As human influence spread throughout galactic military structures, political tensions began to emerge. Some species worried about human dominance in their affairs. Others questioned whether these primitives could be trusted with such power. The crisis came to a head when Elder Krim called General Park to a private meeting. "General, your people have saved us all," the elder began carefully. "But some members of the council are concerned about humanity's growing influence in our military forces." Park nodded. She had expected this conversation. "What are their specific concerns?" "They fear that once the Devourer threat is eliminated, humans will use their position to dominate galactic politics." General Park was quiet for a long moment, then smiled. "Elder Krim, may I ask you a question?" "Of course. In all your observations of humanity, have you ever seen us conquer a people we were helping?" Krim considered this. "No, but your species has never had this opportunity before." "Actually, we have," Park replied. "Many times throughout our history, stronger human nations have helped weaker ones against common threats. Sometimes we have made mistakes, but our general pattern is to help, then step back." She activated a display showing Earth's history. "When we helped rebuild nations after great wars, we eventually withdrew our forces. When we assisted in conflicts, we typically left once the threat was eliminated." Krim studied the data thoughtfully. "Why?" "Because conquest requires holding territory and suppressing people. That is expensive and difficult. It is much easier to have willing allies in trading. Partners." The elder's expression shifted to understanding. "You prefer cooperation to domination." "Exactly. We would rather have friends across the galaxy than subjects." This conversation would later be crucial, because humanity's true test was about to. For so unexpected consequences, 770 words. The defeat of the Devourers should have been the end of the story. The ancient machines lay dormant, their threat eliminated by human ingenuity and galactic cooperation. Victory celebrations erupted across 1,000 worlds, but General Park could not shake a growing unease. "Something is wrong," she confided to Dr. Hassan as they reviewed the final battle reports aboard the command station orbiting the galactic capital. "The Devourers were too easy to defeat once we figured out their patterns." Hassan looked up from his analysis of Devourer technology. "What do you mean?" "It took us 8 months of constant warfare." "That is exactly my point," Park replied. "These machines supposedly conquered the galaxy 1,000,000 years ago. If they were vulnerable to simple jamming techniques, how did they succeed the first time?" Before Hassan could answer, alerts began flashing across their displays. Dr. Nala's voice crackled over the communication system. "General, you need to see this immediately." In the research labs, Dr. Nala stood before a massive holographic display showing archaeological data from dozens of worlds. The information painted a disturbing picture. "We have been analyzing Devourer remains and historical records," she explained, to the assembled human and alien leaders. "The machines we fought were not the original Devourers." Commander Vex stepped forward. "Explain." "The entities we defeated were scouts, advanced reconnaissance units sent ahead of the main force. The real Devourer fleet has been waiting in dark space, observing our responses and learning from our tactics. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Everything they had accomplished, every victory they had celebrated, had been nothing more than a test. Elder Krim's voice was barely a whisper. How many? Based on energy signatures detected at the galaxy's edge, Dr. Nala replied. Approximately 10,000 entities, each one significantly larger and more advanced than the scouts we fought. General Park felt the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. The galaxy had put its faith in humanity's ability to solve impossible problems. Now they faced a threat that dwarfed everything they had encountered. When will they arrive? She asked. 6 weeks, based on their current trajectory. 3. Next few days saw frantic activity across galactic space. The combined fleet, now under joint human-alien command, scrambled to prepare defenses. Engineers worked around the clock to mass-produce jamming equipment. Tactical teams ran constant simulations. But as the true scale of the approaching threat became clear, morale began to collapse. The Scout Devourers had been difficult enough to defeat. The main fleet represented an impossible challenge. It was Commander Tanaka who first suggested the unthinkable. We cannot defeat them in conventional warfare, she stated bluntly during a strategy meeting. Even with our best tactics, we are outnumbered 1,000 to 1. Then what do you propose? Asked Commander Vex. Tanaka activated a display showing the galactic core. We do not fight them. We make fighting us irrelevant. The plan she outlined was audacious beyond anything previously conceived. Instead of defending fixed positions, humanity proposed evacuating the entire galaxy. Impossible, Elder Krim protested. There are trillions of beings across millions of worlds. We could never evacuate everyone in 6 weeks. Not everyone, Dr. Hassan clarified as he joined the presentation. But we can save the essential elements, the knowledge, culture, and genetic diversity of every species. The humans had studied galactic infrastructure extensively during their military operations. They knew which worlds contained the most critical populations, which systems held irreplaceable resources, and which technologies were essential for civilization's survival. We build arc ships, Engineer Santos explained. Small, fast vessels that can escape to other galaxies while the Devourers are busy consuming empty worlds. The proposal horrified the galactic representatives, abandoning their ancestral homes, leaving behind millennia of history and development, fleeing into the unknown. It went against every instinct they possessed. But as intelligence reports confirmed, the approaching fleet's devastating capabilities, the impossible, began to seem like the only option. Even if we could build these arc ships in time, Commander Vex pointed out, where would we go? We know nothing about other galaxies. General Park smiled grimly. That is where humanity's experience becomes crucial. We are very good at surviving in unknown environments. The evacuation plan that followed was the largest logistical operation in galactic history. Human organizational skills combined with galactic technology and resources created a mobilization effort that astounded everyone involved. Shipyards that had produced warships began manufacturing evacuation vessels. Agricultural worlds shifted to producing portable food supplies. Scientific institutions digitized their entire knowledge bases. Most remarkably, species that had been enemies for millennia worked together seamlessly under human coordination. The crisis had created a unity the galaxy had never known. As the first arc ships departed for distant galaxies carrying precious cargo of people and knowledge, General Park stood on the command bridge watching the evacuation fleet disappear into hyperspace. Think we will ever see home again? Asked Dr. Hassan. Park considered the question carefully. Unknown, but I think we are about to find out what humanity can accomplish when we have an entire galaxy counting on us. The real test was about to begin. Humanity's true nature, 770 words. The Devourer main fleet arrived exactly on schedule, emerging from dark space like a swarm of mechanical locusts. 10,000 entities, each the size of a small moon, descended upon galactic space expecting to find thriving civilizations ready for consumption. Instead, they found empty worlds. General Park watched from the bridge of the command vessel Defiance, hidden in the shadow of a gas giant's moon. The evacuation had been successful beyond their wildest hopes. Over 90% of the galaxy's population had escaped to other galaxies aboard the ARC ships, but not everyone had left. "Status report," Park requested quietly. Commander Tanaka consulted her displays. "All volunteer forces are in position. The Devourers are spreading out to investigate the empty systems, exactly as predicted." The volunteers were the key to humanity's final plan. While the majority of each species had evacuated, small groups had chosen to remain behind for a desperate last mission. They called themselves the Remnant, a force of 50,000 beings from across the galaxy, all trained in human tactics and unified by a single purpose. They were not there to fight the Devourers. They were there to steal them. "Begin phase 1, Park ordered. Across the galaxy, tiny strike teams began infiltrating individual Devourer entities. The massive machines designed to consume planets and fleets were poorly equipped to detect small boarding parties using stealth technology reverse-engineered from their own scouts. The boarding process was terrifying. Each Devourer was a maze of mechanical corridors, processing chambers, and control systems. The volunteer teams, led by human specialists, had to navigate hostile environments while avoiding detection by security systems that could vaporize them instantly. But they had advantages the Devourers could not anticipate. Human adaptability, combined with galactic knowledge of machine systems, created possibilities the ancient AI entities had never encountered. Engineer Santos led the infiltration of Devourer Prime, the largest entity in the fleet. Her team included Dr. Nala, Commander Vex, and a dozen other specialists from various species. As they moved through the machine's interior, they marveled at its construction. "It is beautiful," whispered Dr. Nala, studying the quantum processing cores that manage the entity's operations. "It is also predictable," Santos replied, connecting her analysis equipment to the main data conduits. "These machines think in patterns. All we need to do is introduce chaos into those patterns." What humanity had discovered during their months of study was that the Devourers, for all their power, were limited by their programming. They could adapt to external threats, but they had no defenses against internal subversion. The virus that Dr. Hassan had developed was not a traditional computer program. It was a logic bomb disguised as operational data, designed to spread through the Devourers' communication networks and gradually corrupt their decision-making processes. "Upload complete," Santos reported as her team finished installing the virus in Devourer Prime's central systems. Beginning withdrawal. Similar operations were taking place simultaneously across the galaxy. Teams of volunteers risked everything to plant humanity's gift deep within the enemy fleet. The virus worked slowly, subtly. At first, the Devourers noticed nothing wrong. They continued their systematic search of empty star systems, growing increasingly, confused by the lack of life to consume. Then small glitches began appearing: navigation errors, communication delays, processing inefficiencies. Nothing dramatic enough to trigger security protocols, but enough to gradually degrade the fleet's coordination. General Park watched the results from the command center as weeks passed. The mighty Devourer fleet, which had conquered the galaxy a million years ago, began to exhibit increasingly erratic behavior. "They are turning on each other," reported Commander Tanaka with amazement. "The virus is making them identify each other as threats." The final phase began when the corrupted Devourers started actively attacking their own fleet. Massive space. Battles erupted as the ancient machines fought wars against themselves, each convinced that the others had been compromised by an unknown enemy. Within 3 months, the 10,000-strong fleet had destroyed itself completely. "It is over," announced Elder Krim, his voice filled with wonder as he watched the last Devourer entity tear itself apart. "They are all gone," but General Park was already thinking ahead. "No, Elder, now it begins." The ARC ships began returning from their exile in distant galaxies. The great evacuation reversed itself, as trillions of beings came home to worlds that had been cleansed of the Devourer threat forever. But they returned to a galaxy fundamentally changed. The crisis had created bonds between species that had never existed before. Human methods had been integrated into every aspect of galactic civilization. Most importantly, the galaxy had learned that its greatest strength lay not in technology or weapons, but in cooperation and unconventional thinking. Humanity, the primitive species that had answered a desperate call for help, found itself at the center of a new galactic community, not as conquerors or rulers, but as the catalyst that had transformed a collection of isolated species into a true unified civilization. As General Park stood on the observation deck of the rebuilt galactic capital, watching ships from 100 worlds work together in perfect harmony, she reflected on how far they had all come. The aliens had called for help, and humanity had indeed taken over everything, but not in the way anyone had expected. They had taken over the galaxy's capacity for hope, innovation, and unity. And that, Park realized, was the most human victory of all. The end.